I'm your host, Phil Dorita, Lasallian Programs Manager for Christian Brothers Conference. Also joining me behind the scenes is Sarah Leighton, our Director of Education and Formation. And we're thrilled to be with you this afternoon and evening, depending on where you are in our Lasallian world. We have Lasallians joining us all across the country from coast to coast, and international participants too. The global Lasallian mission never sleeps. On behalf of Christian Brothers Conference, it's my distinct privilege to host today's presentation, Retired Lasallians Connect and Contribute, and introduce Ms. Joan Williams and Mr. Robert Ortbul. After 28 years, Joan retired from Lewis University in 2020, where she served as the Director of Advising and Licensure Officer in the College of Education. Joan had previously served as a religious education coordinator at parishes in Michigan and Illinois. Joan completed the Buttimer Institute for Lasallian Studies in 2006. She's a member of the Board of Directors at LaSalle Manor in Plano, Illinois, as well as a member of the Lasallian Companions Busy Persons Retreat Committee, which you'll hear more about in this presentation. Joan is a certified spiritual director through Christos Center for Spiritual Formation in Lino Lakes, Minnesota, and both she and her husband, Dennis, are members of St. Francis Xavier Parish, Plainfield, Illinois, where she serves as a lector, Eucharistic minister, and spiritual director. Joan has been a member of the Lasallian Companions for 2 years. Robert was a Christian brother for 8 years and taught at LaSalle High in Cincinnati, Ohio for 4 of those years. After teaching, Bob embarked on a 39-year career in the insurance industry as an underwriter, retiring in 2017, but he remained active in youth ministry in his parish and has accompanied high school students on annual volunteer projects to Guatemala for over a decade. He served on the board of directors for the Brother David Darst Center for 11 years, and currently tutors English to Central American asylum seekers at Viator House of Hospitality. Bob's been married for 46 years, has 3 children and 7 grandchildren. He's a busy man. Tonight, Joan, and since its foundation, Bob has been part of Lasallian Companions. So he's been a part of this group that he's going to talk about tonight since the beginning. Tonight, Joan and Bob will share how the Lasallian Companions, together and by association, keeps their zeal for the Lasallian mission burning bright. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome Joan and Bob Ortbul.
Well, maybe we could start by remembering that we're in the presence of God. And I'd like to begin with a prayerfully reflecting on this prayer that was written by a Cincinnati Dominican sister. And I think it's very appropriate for what we're about to talk about. It's entitled, Blessed by Good Companions. The search for self, for wisdom, for love, for truth, for justice, for God is strenuous and unending. We need good companions in order to preserve in it, in good company, in a community of conviction. The quest never loses its relevance, its urgency, or its savor. So I'd like to begin by talking about how this got started. Around 2016, the then visitor, Brother Larry Schatz, charged Brother Michael Cadow with forming a group to create the Lasallian Companions. I don't think they knew exactly what that was going to look like when he charged Brother Michael with doing that. But I think they recognized a need to connect people that formerly had worked in Lasallian missions and ministries to an organization that could potentially offer something to the brothers and to one another. I was invited to get involved in this by Brother Michael because he and I had served together on the Brother David Darst board. And because Michael knew me through that, he said, "Hey, Bob, would you consider helping to form a group that's going to explore the idea of people creating the Lasallian Companions?" Although I don't think we knew exactly at that time what that was going to look like. But I was pleased to do that. And so we met. And the next slide will show some of the people that were instrumental. Not everybody is in this picture. I guess a couple missed the picture, but let me just tell you who some of them are, and you might recognize some from various experiences you've had with the Christian Brothers. From left to right is Paul Krause from St. Louis, Brother Michael Cadow, Mary Fox, who is from Minnesota, Winona. Dave Hotek is from Chicago. Jan Mines from Chicago, and Marianne Stitch from now Oklahoma City, formerly Tulsa, and then yours truly. So this was the steering committee that was formed and met in St. Louis at, I think it was the Sisters of Mercy Provincial Aid, to address the needs of the district as well as those of the future Lasallian Companions. So I might mention that LCs is our shorthand for Lasallian Companions. Currently, there are about 30 of us that are members of the Lasallian Companions here in the Midwest. There are no requirements other than being interested in enriching our continued experience of the Lasallian charism. Brother Chris Engler kind of joked that we were looking at someone who was going to join us, and he said, tell them that we'll show them the secret handshake once they join. Many LCs or Lasallian Companions have attended various formation programs throughout their careers, such as the Buttermer Institute, the John Johnston Institute, and I might mention too the LLI is another one.
Bob, I wanted to mention one other one that is ELM. It's Exploring Lasallian Mission, and it was originated at Lewis University, and I know that some of our companions have attended that as well.
Yeah, we have a good showing of folks that were from Lewis University here in suburban Chicago. We actually have Lasallian Companions located in people that are active in Chicago, Minneapolis, St. Louis, as I mentioned, Oklahoma City, Memphis, Tulsa, and we even have one member who, hearing about us, it doesn't exist in her district, but one of the members, Rita Niblack, has joined us, and she lives in Denver. So we've got quite a wide geographical area. Now, how do we get together? I think COVID showed us that we could meet virtually, and that has been a real blessing, if you will, although COVID was a terrible thing to experience. The technology that we have nowadays has allowed us to get together virtually using Zoom meetings. And even folks that live in Chicago, we don't meet often, even though several of us might be in Chicago, because some of the distances to travel for a meeting, an in-person meeting, can be kind of prohibitive. So it does facilitate our ability to get together without a lot of travel stress, if you will. So the first generation of the Lasallian partners were formed through intentional structured programs, and then many of them were retiring. The Lasallian partners often found themselves unconnected to the mission and the charism to which they had committed many years of service. In some cases, they might have moved away from where the mission was. Perhaps the mission no longer exists, or they have other issues that created a situation in which they were no longer connected, but had a desire to remain connected. So the Lasallian Companions provided a means to retain that connection and also serve the needs of both the Midwest District as well as one another as retired Lasallians. So part of our purpose and mission is to provide assistance to the Midwest District in the ongoing formation of mission by mentoring young teachers, administrators, and staff. And also, we provide retired Lasallians with a sense of community and an ongoing connection with the mission and the charism. I have to say personally that being a part of it has really given me a sense of community that I find very unique, in the sense that we have this shared interest in the Lasallian mission and charism. And the quality of people is just outstanding, if I say so myself. We're a great group of people, and I think being associated with them, I find very energizing and life-giving, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
You know, Bob, I wanted to say that I retired during COVID in 2020, and I felt a little bit lost too. I wasn't sure what I was going to do as far as retaining my Lasallian identity and the friendships that I've made. So Jan Mines, who is one of the founding members of the group, she's also a dear friend of mine, talked to me about Lasallian Companions and encouraged me to join. At first, I was a little hesitant because I wasn't a teacher or an administrator, I was a staff member. But I soon learned that that didn't matter, so I have been reminded several times that the term Lasallian educator covers everyone who's involved in the life of a student. I've been warmly welcomed by the group, and I've been very grateful for that. I feel that my circle of friends has increased exponentially since I joined Lasallian Companions. I think I would like to introduce our next screen, and that is going to be my dear friend Jan Mines, who's going to talk about her experience with Lasallian Companions. And she's going to be followed by another of my friends, Pamela Mott. And I just wanted to point out that both Jan and Pamela are affiliated members with the brothers. And we also have at least 2 other members of our group who have been affiliated with the brothers. So at this point, Jan, take it away.
Hello, I'm Jan Mines. I'm a retired administrator from Lewis University. I've been involved with Lasallian Companions from the beginning. When I was retiring, I was so happy this group was forming. With Lasallian Companions, I'm able to connect and stay connected with the Lasallian world. I have met Midwest Lasallians and other Lasallians from the region. Via Zoom and in person, we have thought-provoking book and movie discussions. We share life's joys and sorrows. We support each other on our life journeys. I am grateful for these people and this group.
I'm Pamela Mott. I worked for the Christian Brothers for my entire career, first at Lewis University for many years, and then I retired from Christian Brothers services after 15 years. When I retired, I didn't have a plan for how I was going to maintain a Lasallian connection. But fortunately, I was invited to join the Lasallian Companions, and it's been exactly the connection I was looking for. I hope you will consider joining us.
Sue, and what are Lasallian Companions? Well, we are Lasallians who are retired or nearing retirement. And I might mention that even if you're not retired, if that's something near on the horizon for you, to give some consideration to involvement in the Lasallian Companions. We're people who have experienced significant Lasallian formation. In my case, that was many decades ago when I was a young brother. That was principally my Lasallian formation, but as Joan mentioned, a lot of the members have had significant Lasallian formation throughout their career in association with the schools or the ministries. And all of us have a sincere desire to remain connected with the mission. And we're interested in deepening our spiritual formation in the Lasallian tradition. So I think there's a dimension here that we're not just a club getting together for socialization. We do feel that there is something that allows us to deepen our spiritual life by being a participant in the Lasallian tradition.
I think that's one of the things I treasure the most, Bob, because it's not every group of people that I'm with that I can talk about spirituality. So that's an important aspect of the group for me.
There are 3 main areas that we're involved in. The first is the busy person retreats, and Joan will explain that in a little more detail. There's the what we call a Lasallian discussion group, and I will talk a little bit about that more in depth. And then finally, we do have an annual in-person gathering. We've done that for a couple years, and that's been a real shot in the arm, I think, for the group. Although we enjoy seeing one another virtually, there's nothing like actually being with one another and breaking bread together. So these are the key areas where we're endeavoring to be connected to the Lasallian charism.
So I'm going to talk about the Busy Person's Retreat, but before I do that, I wanted to send a shout out to David Genders from the Midwest District Office, who designed and printed for us the poster that was on the previous screen, and also helped us get the word out about Lasallian Companions Busy Person Retreat for this school year. He made the job of spreading that word so much easier with all the assistance that he gave us. So the Lasallian Companions were started in 2019, and they were looking for ways to engage with the ministry around that time. And they had heard about the Busy Persons Retreat, which was offered by Brother Dennis Galvin and Brother Rob Veselski at some of the ministries in the Midwest. I was introduced to the BPR, which is what we call it for shorthand, when I was at Lewis University. And so when I heard about that portion of the Companions, I was very excited to get involved with it. Brother Dennis has been key in many aspects for this program because he is also a spiritual director. He is certified to do that, and he has trained most of us. So we host an event for faculty and staff about an hour or so for 2 days, usually, in a school, and listen to them. We don't do a lot of talking. We do listening mostly so that they have the opportunity to talk about things. We thought that this would be a good format to follow, so that's what we have been doing for the last almost 3 years. In January, the first meeting was held, January of 2020, and Brother Dennis, like I said, did most of the training for this. There are certain books that the Lasallian Companions read, which he used for the training. A Hidden Wholeness by Parker Palmer, and that book is still being used for training. And they also used Stillness Speaks by Eckhart Tolle and The Gift of Years by Sister Joan Chittister. Then, of course, the pandemic hit, and it kind of changed the focus because they knew that they wouldn't be able to go out to the schools at that point, but they continued to train via Zoom. And then in spring of 21, a little while after the pandemic kind of slowed down, we reached out to the ministries to see if they would be interested in having us come to their school or perhaps even do a virtual Busy Persons Retreat. We have served many schools, and most of them, you will notice, are in the Midwest district, and majority of them are in the Chicago area, simply because we have many of our members who live here. But we have been at Lewis University in Romeoville, and also Christian Brothers College High School in St. Louis, and that is a very active site for our Busy Persons Retreat. We will be going back there again next month to do a Busy Persons Retreat. And this year and last year as well, we were at Lewis University, at LaSalle Manor in Plano, at Montini Catholic High School, which is in Lombard, which is a suburb of Chicago. And then we were also at De La Salle Institute in Chicago. And this year we've been pleased to be able to go back to De La Salle twice. We were there during Advent and again during Lent. And that has been really great for us. The training takes place usually during the winter or early spring. And it is online on Zoom. And we meet about once a month and read the Parker Palmer book and discuss it and apply it to our work as companions for the Busy Persons Retreat. Other things that we have talked about in training are important topics to be considered. And one of them is being Lasallian, and how does being Lasallian affect how you listen to others? And then as far as listening goes, we have to have boundaries. We have to understand that everything is confidential, and sometimes there may be cause to consider required reporting, perhaps because of something that may have been said. And another thing that we learn about is how to ask questions. You know, many of our members who are trained to be listeners for this have had careers where they maybe gave advice to people, or told people what they needed to do. But being a listener for the busy person's retreat is so different from that. We listen to what someone is saying. We listen to what's on their heart, and we don't give them answers. We want them to be free to talk about whatever is bubbling up inside of them and whatever needs to come to the surface. One of the things that's very important about this is that we don't judge them. We just listen. And again, as I said, confidentiality is another big point with being part of the busy person's retreat, because we want the participants to understand that whatever they say to us will go no further. We are there to listen to them. We have no connection to their ministry. Don't know their family, don't know anything about them. And so that frees them up to talk to us about whatever might be on their mind. We've got about 12 to 15 members so far who are trained to be listeners. And we offer the opportunity to those who've already been trained to kind of retrain whenever we train new people to listen. So it's always good to have that little brush up to remind you of things that maybe you've forgotten, because this is not something that we do every day. So the training is very important for all of us to try and participate over and over again if we can. I'd like to give a little shout out to the people that are on the committee, because of course we couldn't do it without these people. One of them, of course, is Brother Dennis Galvin, who is our spiritual director. He is our guide through this whole process. And then Marianne Stitch, who you'll see a little bit later on. Paul Kraus from St. Louis, Rita Niblack from Colorado, and a new member, Diane Brown. As a committee, we meet roughly about once a month to update ourselves on what's going on. And then we maybe plan the training or kind of get things together for the ministries, maybe guidelines for them to follow or questions we might have for them. So that is kind of the training in a nutshell. And what are the goals? It all sounds very nice. We're going to go and listen to people, but it's not as easy as it sounds. And we want to definitely nurture the people that we are listening to. We want to nurture the spiritual life of the Lasallian educator, if that's what they want to discuss with them. But we also will listen to them talk about their relationships, their work, their family life, all of the things that comprise and become part of their spiritual life. We have heard people talk about issues in their families, about big decisions that they have to make, any number of things. Maybe something's not going quite right in their classroom and they need a little confidence boosting. We listen carefully to them, as I said, and we don't judge them at all. And basically the important thing for them to understand, or for anyone to understand, is this is their time. I always make sure that they understand that this is their time to talk about whatever is on their mind. And we let them lead the conversation, and then it just kind of flows from there. It's really neat to be a part of that, to just let them talk and then to just sit back and listen to them.
And what a gift it is for people
Yeah.
to an hour when someone is very attentive to them, listening to them. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but I think all of us recognize when someone really truly listens to us and what's on our heart or in our mind. That's a real gift. And so that's what we propose to do with the Busy Person's Retreat. But I have to say too, as one who's conducted it, there's a reciprocity there where it sounds kind of strange, but I get a lot out of it. I know we all do, in kind of a interesting way to allow someone to kind of open up with us and tell us what's on their mind is a gift to us too. And And it helps us to reflect on our own lives and the lives of other people that we know that may be experiencing the same thing. But as Joan said, we're there to give them that time to share with what's on their mind.
And you're right, Bob. It is a gift to us because, first of all, it's such an honor to be there to witness whatever it is what they have to say. And then, as you said, I think sometimes we can see ourselves in them, and they even enlighten us with how they handle whatever it is that they're talking about. It's always a good experience. I think goes both ways, as you said. One of the things I did want to point out is that the Busy Persons Retreat is not a counseling session. And again, as I said, many of us may have had roles in our previous careers where we did some counseling or advising or telling people what to do, but that is not what this is. We listen to them. We ask questions that maybe will shed a light from a different perspective on what they're going through. This is not a teaching experience, and it's not a lesson in methodology. Again, I'm not a teacher. I can't tell them what to do in their classroom, but I can listen to how it makes them feel maybe when they're having an issue in the classroom. And it's not a theology lesson. We have found that some of the people who take part in the Busy Persons Retreat may not be Catholic, may not even believe in God, but this is still time for them, time for us to listen to them. So we're not going to try and change them. We're not evangelizing, anything like that. It's just an opportunity for them to know that they have this hour, that they're important to us, and what they have to say is important. Now, how does all this happen? You might want to know. Again, as I said, it was great this year because Dave sent out the poster and the letter with his monthly package that he sends to all of the animators. And so the animators got the information. Once they looked it over and perhaps talk about it to the administration, find out if this is a good idea for their ministry, then they would reach out and either contact me or someone else in Lasallian Companions. And then we talk to them about a date. When is a good time for them to have this? When is it a good time for the teachers, especially the teachers or the staff or administrators, whoever it is? When is a good time that they can, that there's not too much going on in the school, although we know that they're always very busy in the schools. So we want to pick a date that, has potential of being open for them. And sometimes we ask them for a backup date because the weather here in the Midwest is not always the best. So we have to be prepared for that. After that, the animator will share the date and the information about the Busy Persons Retreat with everyone in the ministry. And they do that in various ways. I've heard that some of them go and speak to faculty meetings, staff meetings, whatever. And then sometimes they send an email out to everyone. Whatever it is, they disseminate that information so everyone has it. The next step then would be for them to gather a list of all the people who want to take part in this. And they get that list together, and then it's important that they also get the list to tell them when these people are available, because all of the faculty and the staff have different things going on in their days. So we definitely try to work maybe during their lunchtime or during their open period or whatever is best for them. And so then the animator will also have to find places in the building where the listener, the Lasallian companion, and this Lasallian educator can meet in privacy. Because again, we don't want whatever they have to say to be broadcast to anyone else. This is something that is private between them and the companion. So sometimes we've met in conference rooms, in classrooms, in offices, in chapels, whatever works best so that it accommodate the privacy of everyone. And then finally, the animator gets the list to me, and then I will recruit Lasallian Companions, who are all very anxious to do this. And we set everything up so we make sure that we get to the ministry on time. As I may have mentioned earlier, sometimes we do this in person and sometimes we do it virtually. So because we're all spread out so much, I think that we definitely encourage the virtual if possible, but we do understand that there's nothing that can replace the one-on-one face-to-face meeting for these events. Okay, so next we have Dennis Block from Montini Catholic High School in Lombard, Illinois, which I said is a suburb of Chicago. And then Dennis is going to be followed by Emily Vogel from De La Salle Institute in Chicago. Both of them are going to be talking about their experiences with the Busy Person Retreat. And the third video will be from Marianne Stitch, one of the members of Lasallian Companions, one of the founding members, and also someone who has participated in the Busy Persons Retreat.
Hello, my name is Dennis Block, and I am a theology teacher and Lasallian animator at Montini Catholic. Been an animator for 3 years now. This is my second year working with Joan on the Busy Persons Retreat, and it really has been a blessing for us at Montini. It's been a great way just to take time aside to remember our Lasallian faith, Lasallian heritage, especially for those teachers that are not that familiar with it, just to see that we are more than just Montini. Also, it's a great way to help just take some time for ourselves. It's a great way to help us to realize what it is that we need as teachers, as faculty and staff. It's been great this past couple of years, and I've been a part of Busy Persons Retreats since college, and it's wonderful to keep this going here at Montini.
Hey there, my name is Emily Vogel from De La Salle Institute in Chicago, and we recently had some Lasallian spiritual companions here with us over Advent. They met with about 5 of us faculty members. We've had them in the past as well and plan to have them again for this coming Lent. The teachers that sign up, including myself, I think really find it to be a comforting way of just talking about faith or talking about what's going on in our lives, and just having somebody there to listen to us and to affirm different things that we are going through. I know I personally have always found it to be really helpful. And also for people who don't have an experience of meeting with a spiritual director, I think this can be a great way to introduce them to that possibility. And maybe they will in the future. But I'm super grateful for the Lasallian guides, the spiritual companions, and look forward to having them back again in Lent. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marianne Stitch. I've been retired from Bishop Kelly High School for 8.5 years, and that's the same amount of time I've been involved with Lasallian Companions. I was in the beginning stages of our group. I have also, over this time, been involved with the Busy Persons Retreat, our book club, and I've attended all of our summer gatherings in Chicago. Each of these activities has given me an opportunity to connect with my Lasallian heritage and that spirituality, which has meant so much in my life. I hope you will take the opportunity to look at something like Lasallian Companions for your district. Live Jesus in our hearts forever.
So at this point, we'd like to talk about the discussion group. That's not a real fancy name. We do say we're the Lasallian Companions discussion group. This picture is a little deceiving. This was taken at one of our in-person gatherings. But the reality is that our discussion groups meetings are held virtually. The subjects are pretty wide-ranging. All the Lasallian Companions are invited to participate, but there's no obligation to attend. And I think we recognize that even as retired Lasallian companions, we often have other things that we have to do. We might be busy when one of the meetings is held. We also may be less interested in some of the topics that are going to be discussed. But we decided that it was good to do it monthly. They're held virtually, as I said, and we've chosen the second Wednesday of the month. And we find 2 to 3 p.m. A good time for everyone or most everyone to be able to make the meetings. Again, the purpose of this is spiritually based, and it's guided by the interests of the group, including reflection on what is being experienced in retirement. Brother Armin suggested for one of our meetings in the last year or so, to each of us to share what we were finding both positive and negative about being retired. And it was a really fascinating opportunity to hear what other people were experiencing about retirement. Everybody, I think, has a unique experience about what that means for them based on what kind of career they had and what they're doing in retirement. And I think not just a book club. We do read books, and I think the next slide will show some of that. I think if you look at this, you can see that it's a fairly wide variety. We read a book by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Not in God's Name, which addressed the whole area of how sometimes radical religions will lead to violence. And Rabbi Sachs has really discussed the whole idea of how that is such a in opposition to what all the major faiths really teach, if you look at what they really teach. The Universal Christ is by Father Richard Rohr, a Franciscan who founded the Center for Action and Contemplation in New Mexico. And I think he's widely recognized as one of the most impressive and thoughtful theologians. He doesn't consider himself a theologian per se, but he has some, I think, extraordinary views on how to make our faith more real and for us to become more committed to contemplation as well as action. And of course, one of our favorites is Parker Palmer, and we read On the Brink of Everything. Parker Palmer happens to be a Quaker. So we've got a Franciscan priest, a Quaker, and a rabbi at some of the books that we've read. We've also viewed and discussed the first 3 seasons of the video program, the series called The Chosen, which is about the life of Christ. It's a portrayal of Christ's life based on scripture, but with scenes and dialogue that are very, very thought-provoking in that they show the humanity of Jesus and the apostles. It's clearly a lot of that dialogue is created, and yet the people that put this together from, I'm trying to think of the name of it. At any rate, they really do base it on scripture, and we really enjoyed that. And they're in the filming of some other seasons of The Chosen, so that's very likely to be something that we will explore in the future. And recently, a member of Lasallian Companions who's experiencing his final journey of life and has been in and out of hospice, asked if he could present his reflections on this stage of life to the Lasallian Companions. And I think I speak for all of us who participated in that. It was very moving, and I clearly allowed all of us to reflect about our own mortality. And it was a beautiful reflection on the meaning that he's found in his life by being associated with the Lasallian Companions. And currently, we're in the season of Lent, and we chose to read the Meditations in a Time of Retreat by St. John Baptist de La Salle, with the reflections on those meditations by Brother Vincent Pelletier. The summer gatherings, we've had 2 of them, and both of the first 2 were held at the Blessed Brother James Miller home in Westmont, where out-of-town guests were welcome to stay. This is a brother's residence with several extra rooms, so for those that were from out of town, they could stay there. This is a picture of the group from last year. The steering committee also uses the occasion to meet and plan future endeavors, as well as review activities of the past year. So we have a pretty good time. It's really nice to be able to get together in person. And this year, excuse me, we're going to be meeting at the Brother David Darst Center for a short retreat that will be led by two of our members. We're actually making it almost a 2-day event. And I think there will be small group discussions. There might be some presentations by some of the members of the Lasallian Companions about some of the things that they're doing in other service ministries. The event usually concludes with a dinner at a local restaurant before we return to our lives as retired Lasallians. Many of the Lasallian Companions currently serve in many other capacities in addition to the busy person retreats. And that can include things like tutoring, ministry to the sick, parish committees, home visits to shut-ins, leading retreats, serving on boards of director. I think one person was very involved in a prison ministry and also a ministry to young people that were physically and mentally challenged. So there's a variety of things that our members are doing. They're not necessarily something that they're doing in a Lasallian school or mission, but they do, I think, enrich their lives. And as they share what they do with the rest of us, it's always, I think, reassuring and also inspiring to see what other people are doing to serve other people.
Inspiring is definitely the word I would use, Bob. I'm constantly in awe of some of the things that the people in our group do. And I just have to say, the best thing about Lasallian Companions is the people that are in it. They are all so wonderful, such caring people. And, they've taken their retirement and turned it into a gift for all the people that they serve. So I think that is just something special about the group.
I might mention a little bit of a shout out to the Brother David Darst Center, which is located here in Chicago. And more recently, they've got a new facility, which was a former provincialate of a religious order. So they've got a very nice facility to welcome us this summer. I think they're very pleased to have that facility. And if you don't know about the Darst Center, they provide transformative social justice retreats and immersion experiences grounded in the Lasallian tradition and Catholic social teaching. And through their programs and partnerships with local community organizations, the participants, which are young people from around the Midwest principally, they gain a deeper understanding of the complex realities of injustice, and they obtain tools to take action. And they seek to inspire active engagement of the young people in their faith and develop a commitment to serve and a passion for social change. So it's a wonderful organization. It has about a 20-year history here in Chicago, and we're going to be fortunate to be able to have our summer gathering there. So I think that pretty much concludes it. I want to thank Phil and Sarah for their support of this presentation, and we'll now open it up for some questions.
Well, and thank you to the both of you. The breadth and depth of Lasallian Companions is incredible. And as someone who is in the mission, just hearing from some of the Lasallians who I've had the pleasure of working with, it seems like the Lasallian Companions, especially the Busy Persons Retreat, touches their lives in a very deep way. And so on behalf of Lasallians, thank you. It's nice to know that there are those folks out there who are willing to listen and help guide us in many ways. So this is the opportunity for Q&A, and we did have a question that did come in during the presentation from Mick Owens about the Busy Persons Retreat. Is the Busy Person Retreat voluntary for the faculty and staff?
Oh, yes, it's absolutely voluntary. We would never require it, and we would never ask one of the ministries to require it of their faculty and staff. It's absolutely voluntary.
how would you, what's the biggest group that maybe you've had as part of this busy person's retreat on any one of your ministries? I'm curious to see, because it sounds like it can be very intimate, or it can be, there
Mhm.
can be a large group of Lasallians that join you.
Yeah, normally it's between 5 and 10 individuals who are interested in doing it. But I know that at CBC High School in St. Louis, there have been times where there were 20 people that were interested in doing it. So we were fortunate to have one of our companions who lives in that area and had been employed at the school. He was there, and a couple of the brothers that are with our group were able to be there in person. And I think one or two other of our companions. So that helped take care of it, but they were also able to do virtual meetings. So that was very helpful for those of us who maybe couldn't make it to St. Louis, but were willing to be participants in it.
Awesome.
Like Joan said, it's always better to do it in person, but clearly we're kind of spread out over a pretty large geographical area. So the virtual uh, retreat, while I think it's kind of surprising how well that actually works. And I, again, it's better in person, but if a person, one of the persons that's been trained to do the busy person's retreat finds it difficult to get to that location, then it's not a bad substitute, frankly.
Okay. So I just wanted to mention a comment that did come in from Marianne Donahue Lynch, who I had the pleasure of working with in the district office in the District of East North America. She says, congratulations on a very informative presentation on a very important topic. So she also drops a little information for anyone from Dina who's on the presentation. Legacy Lasallians is for retired and others who are no longer directly involved in the Lasallian ministry, but are forever Lasallian. If you're interested, she's asked that you go ahead and contact her, and her email address is in the chat box. So a hearty thank you from her, and I do know that the Legacy Lasallians is something that folks who have stepped away from ministry or have stepped into that retirement phase have been grateful for. And so while I don't think they have necessarily the structure that it seems like Lasallian Companions has, I do know it's very life-giving for those Lasallians, and I know they're always brainstorming new ways. So I certainly hope that if some of our Legacy Lasallians and Dina are watching, they'll be taking some of your ideas. And as a good brother once told me, FSC stands for Find It, Steal It, and Codify It. So I hope that we'll all be sharing those ideas to, enrich and enliven our mission. Also, as we start to close out, I do know he is in the crowd, so I will turn it back over to the two of you for a wonderful shout out to our good brother. So I'll turn this back over to you, Bob and Joan. I'm sure he'll be very, very happy to be shouted out, so I'll let you guys get to that.
And you said he's in the crowd, right?
He is. I see him on the list.
Hey, great.
That's
Hello, Brother
yeah.
Ed.
We're talking about Brother Ed Phelan, who he heard about our webinar and expressed enthusiasm for attending. So we're delighted that he's participating today. He told us about a book that he had written about his, as he calls it, his third half. And it sounded so interesting. And so he sent Joan and me a copy of his book. And it really is a thoughtful personal journey of Brother Ed in retirement. It's full of reflections, and I think what his ideas are that he shares about his own life will resonate with people that are retired who've had a Lasallian connection somewhere along the line. So I said to Ed, I'd like to have a shout out for you, and we wanted to pitch his book. And so here's the details on that. And I want to congratulate him. I think it's a great work of personal testimony about his life and what he's doing in his retirement, and certainly making good use of it, I can tell.
Yes,
So
and I wanted to thank Brother Ed for sending us the book. I'm about halfway through it, and I'm enjoying it, and I look forward to finishing it and continuing your journey through the book. Thank you for sharing that.
Proof positive that retirement can be very wonderful and very constructive.
Right. And he can still inspire so many people with his work.
Okay. Well, as we close it out here, I'm going to drop both of your email addresses into the chat box. Both of you have expressed that if anybody wants to reach out, that they can, questions or to pick your brains, to start to think about how maybe they can replicate some of what the good work that you've done here in kind of your section of the Lasallian world. But I certainly hope that folks will take the ball and run with it and look to see how they can kind of replicate and grow and maybe do some grassroots efforts of their own within their local reality. Um,
Yeah, we'd be happy to speak to anyone who has questions, as I'm sure any of the Lasallian companions would be happy to do that.
Excellent. Well, thank you to the both of you. In closing, much like the sun never really sets on the global Lasallian mission, when you think about it, it's a global mission. Neither does one's commitment to the charism simply because you retire or move on from a Lasallian ministry. Each of us has a unique calling, and we're blessed to have been called and continue to be called to this unique educational mission, ministering to young people. So thanks so much to you, Joan and Bob, for sharing how the Lasallian Companions and forms of association like this help us all to remain connected and in community, present to one another, which is so vital in our work. So thanks to all of you for joining us and connecting with us today for this presentation. It's been a pleasure to host you. Be sure to join our next webinar in our spring series. It's actually our last webinar for this year until we get into the fall. Integral Ecology, a new Lasallian educational project. And that's with Brother Gus Cinco for the Environmental Sustainability Education Initiative, just in time for Earth Day activities. So mark your calendars, Tuesday, April 16th, 6 p.m. Eastern. You can find that upcoming webinar and any of our information as it relates to future webinars coming up and to any of our links, visiting our website. Don't forget to follow us on Lasallian Raylon on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and LinkedIn, where we'll post announcements for next webinars and other formation opportunities. If you have ideas on webinars or subject matter you want to see, let us know. Let me know. My email address is in the chat. We're always wanting to listen and connect and serve you better. Again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all you do for the young people that are entrusted to your care, and blessings to you as you continue to serve this awesome Lasallian mission. St. John Baptist de La Salle,
Pray for us.
pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts.
Forever.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.